Let's start with the story. It's Easter, Bank Holiday Monday, in April in the UK earlier this year. I think we had some sunshine then, I can't remember. And Dominic Abbassano is a part-time shop worker and musician. He wakes up in his flat in Twickenham in southwest London. He goes downstairs, pours himself some breakfast, some cornflakes, and turns on BBC Radio 4's Today programme, starting his day listening to the programme millions across the UK do. He sits down at his laptop and begins to eat breakfast. A few hours earlier, across town, Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Ian Duncan Smith, begins his day travelling to appear on the radio programme that Dominic is listening to. At around 8:30 a.m, Ian Duncan Smith, MP, is asked by the radio presenter if he could live on £53 a week. He says, "If I had to, I could." It's here that the lives of part-time shop worker Dominic and Cabinet Minister Ian cross. Back in Twickenham, having heard what Mr. Duncan Smith said, Dominic starts a petition calling on him to prove that he could live on £53 a week. 100,000 people sign it in the first day. It's trending on Twitter, it's leading the news bulletins, it's the fastest growing petition on change.org on any UK site. And the next day, it's Dominic who's thrust into the spotlight and being interviewed by the media. In the next few days, 500,000 people join Dominic's call for Ian Duncan Smith to live on £53 a week. Journalists are embarking on attempts to live on £53 a week. The Evening Standard runs a guide to going out in London on £53 a week. The big issue is asking its vendors how they survive on so little, and those on the sharp end of welfare are being asked to share their stories. No cabinet minister can take to the media or be interviewed without being asked the £53 a week question. Dominic's petition reframed and shaped the debate around welfare that week in the UK. He showed that with a laptop and an idea, the web can deliver authority to anyone. Now, it's not just happening here, it's happening all over the world in all sorts of ways. Take Molly Catchpole, a 22-year-old nanny outraged at Bank of America's plans to charge debit card fees. Starts a petition, 300,000 people sign it, and she wins. Or citizens in Indonesia who rise up after officers investigating political corruption are thrown into jail. Thousands are empowered to join their movement, and the president is forced to release the officers and let their investigation continue. What is it about these people who are becoming citizen activists when previously they would never have described themselves as campaigners or even remotely political? What gives them this authority? The answer is people. What gives Ian Duncan Smith the authority to go on the Today programme? People voted for him. And what gives the Today programme the authority of being a flagship news show in the UK? The people listening. And what gives Dominic the authority to lead the UK media for a week in April? 500,000 people saying, yes, I agree. The internet at best is a tool for building relationships, sharing experiences, and telling stories. And it's giving authority to anyone. Now, here's an example and a scenario that many women here today will no doubt have experienced. You're walking down the road, you're sitting on the bus or the tube, perhaps you're waiting for a friend at the bar, you're minding your own business, and then you might hear a whistle or a crude comment, an entirely unwanted advance from a stranger. It's pretty much the most disempowering thing that can happen, whatever your background. And in that moment, you feel totally powerless and without any authority over yourself. If you say something, you're dismissed as a frigid killjoy. If you don't say something, you hate yourself. I think I should have said something. The expected behavior we receive is to keep quiet, suck it up. You should be flattered, get over it. But now the fight back is on. One woman, Laura Bates, started the Everyday Sexism Project. It's the perfect example for the digital age. You tweet an example of street harassment, it's retweeted to thousands, added to the website, shared on Facebook. And immediately, people can get in touch with you and say, they've experienced the same thing. Tell you how they felt, how they coped, and remind you that you're not alone. You can begin to call out these experiences and say, they're not okay. From being almost entirely powerless, now you have power over the harassers, the people-powered authority of anyone. It means that people now know their experiences don't happen in isolation. because we're more engaged, have more information than ever before. The web has opened up a world of campaigning, activism, and authority to those traditionally regarded as powerless, the underdogs who believe themselves to be powerless. With the limitless potential for shareability and scalability, anyone can take charge of the issues they care about. David can now stand up to Goliath. That is why, as a professional campaigner, often the very best thing you can do is to make the conditions right for campaigning and then just get out of the way. The smartest organizations realize that real change starts at the grassroots, and the best way to channel it is as much through curation as direction. Because if the conditions are right and the power is pushed downwards and outwards, it's the citizens who will drive the best and most powerful change. In 1986, MP Claire Short took on the Sun newspaper over page 3, and she was relentlessly and mercilessly attacked. Now, 27 years later, Lucy Holmes, who is an author from Brighton, has done the same thing. And despite receiving more than her fair share of abuse, if any of you follow her on Twitter, you'll see, she has inspired a fun and empowered movement of over 100,000 people calling on the paper to drop its sexist images. Both these women have heard the harrowing stories this casual sexism has had on the lives of people. So what's the difference? The positive, mobilizing, and empowering nature of the internet. What Lucy's done, what Dominic did, and what thousands of others are doing around the world right now is moving from just having a story to tell to using that story to change their world. The web is an incredibly powerful tool for storytelling and using storytelling to build movements for change. One person can share their story, others share it, add theirs to it. A movement grows. Corporations, governments, and the institutions that have traditionally powered and governed our lives find themselves in the middle of a people-powered snowball they simply cannot ignore. The power gets pushed downwards and outwards. Institutions, and accountability increases. Institutions are forced to listen and have to change. And as they change, so does the world. And that is the authority of anyone. Thank you.